Hawkings is the editor of CQ Roll Call Daily Briefing. David, good to have you back.
Nice to be with you again, Jamie.
Well, let me ask you first of all whether this really matters, the diversity and makeup of the cabinet. If the president's picking the people he feels are most qualified, does it matter or does it just matter politically?
It absolutely matters politically, but I'm not sure that it does matter substantively. The cabinet, a lot of people misunderstand what the cabinet has become. This is not the cabinet like we had back when Lincoln was in charge or even Eisenhower was in charge, when the cabinet was sort of like a senior management team or an executive committee at a company where they all sort of sat around the table and all decided how to help the president get through the issues of the day. The cabinet now is 14 or 17, depending on how you count the cabinet, different fiefdoms. They all get together once in a while around the cabinet table and have their photograph made. But it really isn't a team that works together. So in that sense, having a diversity on your team doesn't matter because the team doesn't have much stroke. Most of the decision-making at the executive branch level is made in the White House, in the West Wing, by the senior advisors, by the executive assistants to the president, by the so-called czars on various issues, not by the cabinet.
Although I would argue, at least with the Secretary of State and Treasury and others, that there is a lot of work to be done and they'll be held to the standard of what they accomplish. But here's an interesting thing, David. Let's listen to what the president had to say looking forward to his second-term cabinet, what he saw would be the makeup. Let's take a listen. Okay. We were going to play that, but you know what? I actually remember now, and I'm sorry for my producers. I told them I wanted more time to talk to you. We killed it. But basically, he said that it would be more diverse, and it's slightly less diverse. And the question is what it will mean for his agenda.
Right. And I want to emphasize here that what each member of the cabinet does, they all still have power. It's just that they don't work together as a team. So my point, I guess, would be that if you're going to look for diversity, maybe you want to look for diversity within the structures at each department. So in other words, does John Kerry or Chuck Hagel or Jack Lew, who are the three most prominent cabinet secretaries, all white men, do they have a diversity, any kind of diversity in their senior team to help set the agenda? But I would say that the agenda is set from the top. It is set in the West Wing. It is not a cabinet that sits around and decides, we're all going to do immigration together. We're all going to do, excuse me, we're all going to do gun control together. So it's not as though
Here's a look at it, actually. I don't know if you can see this a second term.
I can.
But the question is the president being held to a higher standard, and should the cabinets be, both the first term and second term, be held to a standard of representing what America looks like right now?
Well, it's what the last three presidents, at least Clinton famously said, Bill Clinton famously said 20 years ago, that he wanted a cabinet that, quote, looked like America.
Right.
He sort of set the new standard for this. Now, what I would tell you is that, so the cabinet is, the core of the cabinet are the heads of the executive departments, the men or women who are in the presidential line of succession. It's been essentially the same number of white men in that cabinet ever since Bill Clinton, 6 or 7. It really hasn't changed that much. So I would say politically, George W. Bush decided he wanted also a cabinet that looked like America for political reasons. President Obama as well. It does send a signal to the world. It does send a signal to the electorate that this is a government that wants to have an ethnic and gender diversity.
Yeah, and the president has said so. David Hawkings, great insight on that, something we don't look at very often. Thank you.
Thank
Eric?
you.
Well, Jamie, coming up, the